I can't hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to session 5 of the Small Business Renaissance webinar series. Some New Marketing and the Urban Chamber have partnered to bring this webinar series to our community because these conversations are needed and the actions that need to follow are critical. The goal of this webinar series is to create a town hall-like environment where the community partners can talk about efforts in diversity and inclusion, best practices for minority businesses, and the resources available to overcome some of the barriers and build business acumen and capacity, while also engaging other local small minority business owners. This will also serve as a platform to inform the business community about the upcoming NDOT disparity and their participation with the necessary and may prove to be conducive to the improvement of the current systems in place. Throughout this series, we've had some highly respected individuals join us to share knowledgeable based on their expertise and experience, including several community partners, influencers, and political leaders. But we hope that you're able to tune in to one or more of the sessions. But for this is the bonus session, we decided to switch things up and get perspective from some very well respected, successful, small, and diverse business owners. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that the information provided today proves to be valuable and to each of you and helps you to rebuild your business, your best business. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Kathleen Taylor. As a formal small business owner, Kathleen's goals are to apply 20 years of experience to use effective business strategies to connect entrepreneurs with community resources to ensure their success. Kathleen effectively applies her skills in small business development and economic development to create and coordinate entrepreneur educational programs. Her experience in strategic planning and program management enhances her ability to analyze the feasibility of proposed business models, concepts, and business plan development for entrepreneurs. To promote small business growth and development, she hosts the EMG Business Basics Show and co-hosts the Urban Chamber's Commerce First radio show. Kathleen also serves as a State of Nevada Commissioner for the Nevada Department of Business and Industry Commission on Minority Affairs. She was recognized as the 2019 Small Business Champion recipient at the Green Tie Awards, sponsored by the Urban Chamber of Commerce. She has been a featured speaker, panelist, moderator, and collaborative partner with several organizations. She is a magna cum laude graduate of Grambling State University with a Bachelor's of Science degree in biology. Now I'll be turning it over to Kathleen Taylor.
Thank you so much, Amaya. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, this bonus feature. I'm so excited that we can get the perspective of our small business panelists. And we would also like to have an overview of the NDOT disparity study, and that will be provided by Raven McSwain of the Some New Marketing team. And I have worked one-on-one with Raven in different types of scenarios, and it's always a pleasure to interact with her, engage with her. She's excellent, has a lot of attention to detail. As the marketing coordinator for Some New Marketing, she joined the team in 2019, and she brings experience in project management, coordination, overseeing the administration of programs, strategic planning, small business development, and grassroots outreach with various private and public sector organizations. So it's a pleasure to have Raven here today to give us an overview of the NDOT disparity study. Raven?
Good morning. Thank you, Kathleen. So as Kathleen stated, I will be giving you guys an update on an upcoming disparity study for NDOT. So NDOT is conducting a statewide disparity study of its disadvantaged business enterprise program to ensure that the program remains tailored and that the DBEs have equal access to contracting opportunities. For this study, Some New Marketing is one of 4 partners that will be conducting the outreach and composing the data for this project. The partners include Collette Holden Associates, a nationally recognized expert team on disparity studies and DBE programs, in conjunction with local partners, Deborah Campbell and Associates and Erica Aviles Consulting. The disparity study is, the purpose is for it to analyze whether DBE contract goals remain necessary for to have a level playing field for diverse businesses in the state of Nevada. It will further examine if access to business capital bonding networks and suppliers is available, and it'll also gather anecdotal data for the NDOT DBE program. Finally, the study will actually review NDOT's program and activities to make recommendations for future initiatives and enhancements for the program, including data collection to assist NDOT in setting specific goals. There are 2 parts of the process for this data collection. The quantitative process is where we will collect data and analyze the NDOT's current DBEs and determine the DBE availability in the state of Nevada, as well as analyzing existing and past contracts. And then the qualitative process is the part that Some New, Erica Aviles, and Deborah Campbell and Associates is responsible for, connecting directly with the small and diverse business community to get direct feedback about how the program serves you all and what's available, what's needed, and if things are fair. Next slide. So the anecdotal evidence that's collected will help NDOT decide whether or not the program is necessary, who should be included in the program, what elements should be included in the program, what contract goals should be set moving forward, what needs improvement, what resources are available out there. And like I stated before, that's where this qualitative process comes in, and we need the business owner participation, because without having feedback from the small and diverse business community, they won't be able to tell what is needed to help develop the small business community. For people or business owners who are interested in participating in the study, the meetings were initially set to begin in September of 2020, but it was actually pushed back, like a lot of other things, due to COVID. So the meetings are scheduled to start at the end of October. I believe the first meeting is tentatively set for October 28th. So our partners will be reaching out to you all, not you all, but to different businesses throughout the community to see who's interested. And if you are interested, you can save us the time of reaching out by contacting the email address provided here, the telephone number, or visiting the website to let us know that you're interested in being a part of those small business owner meetings to give feedback and give us information about how NDOT can improve the program. If anybody needs additional information, you feel free to screenshot this information. We'll also drop it in the chat, or you can reach out to anybody on the Some New team for additional information as well. And that concludes my information for the NDOT disparity study. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Raven, for that overview. And to add to that, a disparity study, it's important to help us to understand if there's any barriers or opportunities for increased diversity, and also to let us know that diversity has shown impact in a variety of different businesses and sectors. And with that being said, we will explore with our panelists today, what does diversity and inclusion mean, and how does it impact our overall economy and within our country? And to segue into introducing our panelists, it's my pleasure to introduce to you first Ms. Tiara Flynn. Tiara is a Las Vegas native who began her career in marketing and leadership at her family's firm, Newsome Marketing, as its very first marketing coordinator. Flynn then enlisted in the United States Air Force, where she served from February 2007 through 2016 as an aviation resource manager. Thank you so much for serving our country, Tiara. Also, halfway through her military career, Flynn and her family and her father rebranded Newsome Marketing into what is now known as Some New Marketing. As President and Chief Executive Officer, Flynn is responsible for the company's overall strategic direction and structure of daily operations. Under Flynn's leadership, Some New Marketing has increased revenue every year since 2012 by 10% or more, doubled its human resource capacity, and was named the SBA Family-Owned Business for 2015 and the National Minority Supplier Diversity Council's Supplier of the Year in 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Tiara Flynn. Yay!
Good morning. Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome. Also, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our second panelist, Ms. Taisha Moore. Taisha Moore is the co-owner and president of G3 Electrical, a Nevada electrical contractor. While building and maintaining new client relationships, she manages the operations and resources of G3 Electrical and strives to strengthen and build up her team. She is excited about the multitude of opportunities for women in the male-dominated field of construction. Taisha is an active member of the Nevada Contractors Association, the Urban Chamber of Commerce, Associated Builders and Contractors, and she is a member of the National Association of Women in Construction. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Taisha Moore. Yay!
Thank you.
And also, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our third panelist, Mr. Boss Oreke. He is the owner and managing member of BB Mechanical LLC. The company is a local HVAC/R and plumbing contractor in Las Vegas. Boss is a graduate of the MBE Excellence in Leadership Program, as well as the MGM Supplier Diversity Mentorship Program. Under his leadership and direction, BB Mechanical LLC has experienced increased revenue of over 50% year after year since its inception in 2014. Also, the company was recognized as the SBA 2019 Minority Business of the Year and the 2019 Goldman Sachs 10K SB Program alumni. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Boss Oreke. Yay! So, transitioning into our panel discussion, I'd like to, first of all, pose this particular question to all of our panelists. And we'll start with you first, Tiara. So diving right into being a small business owner, you are a part of a family-owned business. Your family has experience in contracts with different entities. So first of all, just to share with the audience, this first question: has your firm worked on a public works contract or performed professional services for a public entity? Tiara?
Yep. Thank you, Kathleen. So we've worked on several public works projects. Actually, we worked on one of the largest in Southern Nevada, Project Neon, a couple of years ago. So we have extensive experience in that aspect.
Excellent. And so with that, how did you successfully procure this contract? And what were the specific steps that you had to complete to qualify for it in the first place?
Sure. So we do utilize the traditional route of seeking the bids through the public and when they're released, but we also very much utilized relationships that that we worked on building over the last few years. So that's really the most important part of it. Everybody has access to, if you're on all the lists or if you're certified, we're MBE certified, WBE certified, DBE certified. I think that's it. And so by way of having those certifications and being on the list, that's one way, but we really work hard at establishing those relationships and building relationships before we need them. So I would say that's one of the main attributors to being able to successfully procure those contracts.
That's excellent. And I'll circle back to explore a little bit more about the certifications and also the cultivating certain strategic relationships as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Taisha, I'd like to pose the same question to you. Has your firm worked on a public works project or performed professional services for a public entity? And if so, how did you successfully procure that contract and steps that you took to qualify?
Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, we have worked on public works projects, and currently we are in the process of working on two with the RTC. What I would say is I just would like to echo Tiara's comments that it definitely, we all have access to the public information to get those emails or the notifications when those projects come out. But as a subcontractor, we also work with GCs, general contractors. So we also had to make relationships with general contractors as well. Some of those public work projects we can go after on our own as an electrical contractor, but some of them require that we bid under a GC. And so that's where those relationships are critical for us.
That's excellent. You talked about being a subcontractor with underneath a general contractor,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to explore that too within the discussion. So thank you for your comments. And boss, I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well in reference to your company with any experience in contracting in the public or private sector. And what steps did you take in order to qualify for those contracts?
Well, it pretty much mirrors Taisha's. Most of our public works, we get bid invites from general contractors. And we are also able to investigate what's coming up through INGEM. That's the Nevada, Clark County, where it publishes the upcoming bids and requests for proposals. Most everything we do is built on relationship. Over the years, when we started out, we had to prove ourselves. So we succeeded in doing that, and we've managed to have some very good relationships where we pretty much get phone calls and people ask us to come take a look at something or whatever the case may be. And but for the most part, relationships, bid invitations from the general contractors, bid invites, general contractors, and then INGEM in case it's something that we can actually do ourselves. And when it's certified, if you've got a DBE or MBE certification, it's a public knowledge. So there are projects where general contractors actually seek you out, if you will, if they need to meet the diversity component, if that makes sense. And that pretty much is it, as far as that goes.
Okay, thank you for sharing the three of you. Now you've said some things that has a common thread in your comments, like certifications, building relationships, subcontracting, receiving notifications, access to future bids as well. All of this is part of a to me a due diligence process. So talking about the how you engage along the journey. So how do you engage with someone in order to access future bids? Or how do you establish that relationship with someone or an organization that you're seeking certification from? Or do you may have an aspiration of getting a contract with RTC or NDOT from a small business perspective, and someone who is either seasoned or just starting out, that may be a bit overwhelming. It's not like you can just pick up the phone and call someone. So how did you position your firm, or even from a leadership perspective, what did you feel that you had to do in order to create that that opportunity to access this person or organization to get the certification, this person or organization to get access to future bids, this person or organization to at least engage in a conversation about your scope of services or products that you can bring value? So what is that like? And could you share some of those aspects with the audience? And I'll start with you, Tiara.
Yeah, thank you. I did want to expand upon that. So when it comes to, it's interesting because we had a conversation like this morning, myself, Shondell, and some of our partners. When it comes to establishing those relationships, I would say the first step is you do have to research the who, right? Like if they're relevant to your point, what you're trying to achieve, then you need to know who those key players are first. And it is challenging, like you said, to just pick up the phone and start that. But really, that's the first step. Attending those key networking events and making sure that you're being seen, because it's really about, do they even know who you are before they need to know who you are as a company. Attending those specific events, and then figuring out what's in it for them, because they have to run a business as well. I think for us as small business owners, starting out, I know for myself, starting out, I did kind of have the idea of, well, they should want to help the small businesses, or they should want to include us. But really, you have to make sure that you're establishing and cultivating that relationship to be a two-way street.
That's an excellent point that you just made, Tiara. Some of us may think that just because we check the box in being a small business, and we make the assumption that, these large corporations who have the contracts available, they should allow us to have access to a piece of the pie.
Right.
And so just making that assumption doesn't necessarily qualify you to get access and to apply for that contract. There's a lot of due diligence on the small business owner's part in order to open those doors, right, versus just making assumptions and saying, well, why aren't you giving me this contract? I'm a small business owner, where there are things that are involved on your end, mm-hmm, that's part of this mutually beneficial relationship. And yeah. Please, your thoughts?
That I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying, because that's absolutely true. You never know, even though that you're a small business, you could be opening, we've been told by larger corporations and firms that we've opened doors for them. So you have to explore what can you bring to the table. And what you were talking about in checking a box, if you are a firm that is seeking contracts in that way, that's transactional. And that's not a relationship, so you're not going to have longevity.
Excellent point. Taisha, I'd like to have your thoughts and also yours as well, boss, on how important it is to know how to market to public or private entities through the capabilities statement. How critical is that document in letting people know what your scope of services are, in basically a one-page document about your company? So we'll start with you, Taisha.
I think that is like the single most important tangible piece of information that you can give to someone that you are wanting to work with, because you're explaining to them who you are and what you're capable of. So, just because I'm an electrical contractor doesn't mean that we do all things electrical. There are things that we do not do. And if I don't specify those things that we actually do, a GC doesn't know if I'm a good fit for this project that they're moving forward on. So it's super important to make sure that we can explain in that one-page document what it is that we do and how we can be of an assistance and an asset to them on their team moving forward on a project.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments. And boss, how about you? Any additional thoughts to Taisha's comments?
Not exactly. With your, basically, most of these general contractors, when they seek you out, they go to the contractors board, to the licensing that you can access online. And it pretty much, in my case, lets them know, okay, I've got a C1 license, which is for the plumbing and piping. And I've got my C21 license, which is for HVAC mechanical. And it also lets them know what my limit is. So usually, and majority of our work is done through a general contractor. We bid to them and things like that. The only other thing I will say will be, we are also a union. We are signatory to Local 88 and Local 525, the plumbers. So essentially, a better way of saying it probably would be, once you build these relationships, you're not really having to seek out, at least in my case, I'm not having to seek out a lot of things. People are seeking us out, which we are fortunate and blessed to be in that position. Yeah, it's like we don't really have to go out there. And in the beginning, I did. Now, I don't. A blessing in itself.
Yes, and that really is a tribute to your leadership skills as well, and cultivating, maintaining those relationships to the point to where you're being they are the ones calling you, so to speak, versus you constantly having to engage with them.
That is correct.
And that definitely speaks volumes, which is why your company has increased its revenue by 50% since its inception in 2014. Now, speaking of leadership skills, boss, so we know that there are a lot of resources in the state of Nevada for diverse business development. And you've been involved quite a bit with MGM's Supplier Diversity Program, Goldman Sachs program as well, and the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council program as well. Oh, side note, I'd like to give a special shout out to Ms. Rose Davis. Rose, excellent work at the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council. But back to the point that I was making, boss, how did you getting involved with these different companies from a leadership development perspective impacts your business's growth and development over the years? Your thoughts?
So it starts out with you. I can't ask somebody to help me if I don't help myself. What do I mean by that? Well, I never, I went to events. Those events I went to, that was not part of my work day. My work day started either before or after and continued afterwards. So we were dedicated. When we started this whole thing, we didn't know MGM was gonna call upon us to say, hey, we would like to mentor your company. The reason that happened is we laid the groundwork. We did a lot. So then you go to these events, it becomes a chance meeting. Then somebody looks you up and they see how much progression you've made.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, somebody goes, I think they might be a good fit. Then they talk to you, you come across like you want it, and you're dedicated. Then the opportunity, what MGM did for us, we always knew we were going to be successful. But what MGM did was turbo boost, caffeine, whatever you want to call it. They just helped us accelerate
Yes.
without question about it. And a lot of times you've got corporations that say we want to help you. A lot of corporations talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They do just enough to keep somebody quiet. We're not going to go into any names. So, you know, they do just enough, but there is no accountability. So once that clears, they don't do anything. There is no measurement. There is no, hey, how do we know something happened here? What was your success rate? What's the participation of a minority contractor? What you don't have that. But MGM did that all on their own, if that makes sense. In other words, they call you in, they want to know, the construction managers know, okay, you've got to give BB Mechanical a fair chance at this. And we're keeping an eye on what's going on. That makes a huge difference. They did not leave it up to devices of whoever. And that in turn leads into that whole me working at McCarran Airport. Then people see you do good work. Then the word gets around. Or working for Clark County, the word gets around. And all of a sudden, you walk in a room, people already know you before you even open your mouth. And if it's a positive, then that doesn't do anything but help you even more. So the work, you've laid the groundwork, you're doing it, and it's been amplified by the people you come in contact with, if that makes sense.
Yes, and you brought up an excellent point, which really brings us back to why Some New Marketing collaborated with the Urban Chamber of Commerce and NDOT to provide this opportunity for small businesses to participate in this disparity study. Because through data tells the narrative, data drives the narrative. And by companies, MBEs, DBEs, women-owned businesses, minority-owned business enterprises coming together and participating in the NDOT study, it provides us with data, with facts to present to entities and say, this is how minority business owners or getting access to the piece of the pie, or they are qualified, they have the capacity, they have the scope of work and expertise. And despite all of that, they're not getting access to the piece of the pie, which is why we have a disparity study in the first place.
That is correct.
So I'm just so pleased that Some New Marketing, the Urban Chamber of Commerce, NDOT, Nevada Department of Transportation has come together to provide this platform so that we can generate data and have all of your voices as small business owners who have access to these contracts and opportunities, and that are saying that these types of disparity studies are relevant, they are applicable, and they are highly impactful as well for the economic and small business development in Nevada business communities. Ooh, can I get an amen? That felt good. Now, Taisha, I'd like to pose this question to you in reference to accessing community resources as well for your development or your positioning in the marketplace in construction. So, for example, you are a member of the Nevada Contractors Association. the
Yes.
Urban Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
the Associated Builders and Contractors, and the National Association of Women in Construction.
Yes.
So how did you come to figure out that these are organizations that my firm needs membership in, or my firm needs to be part of that network to position us in a market, in this marketplace?
Okay.
Thoughts?
Yes, to believe it or not, we kind of stumbled upon the Urban Chamber of Commerce, and I'm pretty embarrassed about saying that, but we just kind of stumbled upon the Urban Chamber. And once we did that, we got involved and we participated. And I understood how important it was for us to be an active member in the chamber. That also opened doors for me to be active in my trade organizations. I was already active in NAWIC, which is the National Association of Women in Construction, but there are definitely organizations that speak to a different part of our business. And so that's the reason why we sought out other trade organizations to make sure that we were connected to, so that we are in that space. We are in the space to be able to build those relationships. And so when I say being an active member, that doesn't mean, just kind of showing up here and there. It actually, as Boss kind of explained it, so those networking events, you're working and you're going to those networking events and then you're still working. And so you really do have to do that. You have to lay the foundation. It just doesn't happen overnight. Even though you might build a relationship with somebody, it doesn't mean that tomorrow that means you're getting their business. It's going to take time. And, I don't know what that time looks like. I know what our timeline looks like, but I can't say for someone else, but I can tell you it takes time, and it's not a month, it's not 2 weeks. It takes time, and it takes time of constant building and connecting. And so the interesting thing is that when I see someone at the NCA, Nevada Contractors Association, I'll see that same person at a NAWIC event. I'll see that same person at an Urban Chamber of Commerce event, and I'll see that same person at an ABC event. So it's kind of a small world, especially here in the construction community.
Yeah.
It's a small world, and you will definitely run into the same people, but you're building those connections, you're building those relationships, and understanding that that relationship is not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen just because you show up and say hi. You may need to get involved, be on a committee, take part in, participate in what they're doing, what they're offering, because a lot of times these organizations offer programs that will help your business. Urban Chamber offers the contract connections. That was huge for us. That was how we even learned to write our capability statement. We didn't have that before. So those things kind of help you to position yourself, because while there are, we're talking about the NDOT disparity study, we have certified businesses, but that doesn't mean that we're prepared to walk through the door. And so we need to make sure that we're prepared to walk through the door.
I'm so sorry, Taisha. Could you just repeat what you just said? That is absolutely excellent, critical.
That just because we're certified, it doesn't mean that we're prepared. And so those being a part of those organizations, whether you knew or not, oh, I didn't know that I needed this, I didn't know that I needed that, you kind of get educated. Oh, I need to be able to bond. I need to have a bonding capacity. I need to be able to do this. My financials are important. That's kind of that's kind of, it's almost like high school. When you're in high school, you see your friends every day, you kind of know, and you do what your peers are doing. Well, it's the same thing. And so you're affiliating with people that are your peers. And I think that's why being connected with those organizations have been so critical for us.
This is excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Boss and Taisha, for your comments. Going back to you, Tiara. So obviously, within this climate that the pandemic has created, it's created some, immense challenges, across the board, whether in business or our personal lives, professional lives, our company's bottom line. So what advice would you give to small business owners to pivot or reposition themselves in order to have their products and services provide even more value or solutions to acquire future contracts. Your thoughts on that, Tiara?
Yeah, for sure. So what we've been telling our clients, and even we started with ourselves, is like you said, during this time, how do you pivot? You rebound through rebranding. And it's sort of an internal campaign that we started and outwardly shared with our clients and the public. One of the things that we know as a marketing firm and focusing on marketing and branding is that the larger corporations, the larger GCs and all that, they don't, in times like this, get stuck in survival mode. They quickly pivot and start investing in the future because they know that it's going to turn around. It may sound strange to be like, well, you know, I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to keep the lights on. I'm trying to keep people employed. But there is silver lining, and there is a small window of opportunity that you will miss if you get stuck in survival versus investing in your business during this time.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. What are your thoughts on the company that has an established mission, an established brand, and their whole scope of work is in one particular sector? Then you have something like COVID-19 that hits, and then there's a small window, an emerging market that has literally made a few people millionaires overnight just by producing a mask. Now, I went on Amazon just to amuse myself and to do a search, you know, just for, you know, COVID-19 masks. Over 200,000 products popped up. So who knows, you know, how many companies, you know, that adds up to. So my point is, and my question to you is it strategically sound or an opportunity for your brand to pivot into that type of market when you're established over here, but you see this window of opportunity and you enter it, and then when the trend is over, you exit out and go back to your bread and butter? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if it doesn't, I guess my first thought is if it doesn't compromise the intangibles of your brand, right? It wouldn't make sense for, I'll use us as an example. Some new marketing, you guys know us as someone who focuses on the strategy and the process of marketing. It wouldn't make sense for us to compromise our brand as it's known to pivot into promotional marketing items. Would it be, I guess, easy? Maybe, maybe not, for us to say, oh, you know what, now we're doing mugs and we're doing cups and we're doing those promotional items. That's not true to the integrity of who we are as a brand and a company. It's definitely good to revisit your process, revisit your vision, your mission, your why, but your why is what keeps you in the game long-term. The quick fix, the quick money, the quick transactional, again, is what will get you through, I guess, the moment. And then you'll find yourself, because to your point, the mask and sanitizers and things like that are important right now. But in a year they won't be, and you'll be lost or you'll be stuck in that. And to be, I guess, like a little transparent, we've somewhat fallen into that as a firm in the past before, where we said, you know, we're going to go after all of these government contracts or state contracts, when really at the core of who we are small businesses. That's who we got in the game to service. And so it's easy to get lost in that. And when those things are no longer available or no longer trending, you're going to be wiped out with them, if that makes sense.
That makes fantastic sense. Excellent point. And thank you for giving us those tangible examples as well. Moving into the whole realm of legislation and policy, I'd like to pose this question to all three of you. And I'll start with you, boss. So how important is it for businesses to be involved in policy, generally or in your industry? So what are your thoughts on that from a policy perspective for small business development, opportunities, economic development. What are your thoughts on that, boss?
Well, I think we are blessed to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, first of all, because we have very forward thinking corporations, if you will. So there are two parts to this. You've got corporate America in general, the casinos, the hotels, and those kind of things. But then you also have what access do us as minority contractors. How does that factor in? So although you could make a case that corporate America in Las Vegas they are very forward thinking, they participate quite a bit in legislation. I don't know that we get the same results as of yet. There's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to making sure that disadvantaged businesses are able to participate. Part of why you guys are doing the disparity study. So when it comes down to it, yes, it's extremely important legislation for us to be involved in it. The question becomes, how do we quantify progress for disadvantaged businesses? Because if we do not have access, we're screwed. And if you've got those that say they're giving us access, which they are, however, nobody's really monitoring it to see what kind of results are coming out of it, then you still end up with the same result. We don't have enough participation. And real quick, to back up for a hot minute, if you don't mind, to echo something that Taisha said a few minutes ago about being prepared. I'm just going to say this. I hope nobody takes offense. As a Black man, minority contractor, I don't get a chance a lot of times to do a redo. So you've got one chance to make a hell of a good impression. That means, and this happened, by the way, that means when you go to that job fair or that meet and greet, please, whatever you do, at the very least have a business card. Because we go into certain situations and there's already a stereotype there. I can't control what people do. I can control what I do. So whatever it is you're doing, make sure at the very least be prepared. That means have a capability statement. That means have a business card and be ready if that opportunity presents itself, that you're not going to look like an ass. Somebody goes, oh, let me have a business card. And, oh, man, no, that doesn't work. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much for those candid comments, boss. Before there's opportunity, there is preparation, and before preparation, there is organization. If you're not organized, if you're not prepared, it doesn't matter what opportunity is in front of you. You have basically decreased your chances of getting access to that opportunity if you haven't completed those first two steps.
Absolutely.
That's just the nature of it. Now, from my experience in the small business sector here in Las Vegas, I was so impressed with Ken Evans, president of the Urban Chamber of Commerce, with Shondell Newsom, the current chair of the executive committee for the board of directors for the Urban Chamber of Commerce, and other leaders in the community. When the Raiders came to town, they were the first ones that said, these contracts that are going to be available for the Raiders Stadium, minority businesses should have a voice and should be part of that conversation. Small business should be part of that conversation to be given the opportunity to access these contracts. When I saw these, this think tank, basically, group of leaders go to Carson City and have a conversation with the governor to push that type of policy, so to speak, into the narrative, that blew me away. It's like, now this is a group of people that practice what they preach. They are organized, they are prepared, and they are creating the opportunity for minority businesses in Nevada versus saying something, but you don't back it up.
Yeah, right.
So it is fantastic that we have that type of representation and leadership within those leaders in our community. So, I'm going to church today, everyone. So just bear with me.
There you go.
If I can add, that goes back to what Taisha was saying earlier about being an active member in the chamber. So when that happened, I know for a fact in the background that Shondell and Ken were both like, this is the list of what they say they need for the stadium. These are the members that we know would be great for this type of work, that's capable, that's prepared, that's willing, and that's able.
Excellent, excellent. And I would also like to pose the same question to you, Taisha, in reference to policy. So how important it is for businesses to be involved in policy for small business and economic development. Your thoughts?
I think that it's very important to be involved in policy because there are decisions that are being made that will affect your company. So for me in the construction industry and me being a non-union contractor, there are definitely, I for sure need to pay attention. And I'm not saying that if I were union that I wouldn't need to pay attention, but I am just saying that there are different rates that I have to pay attention to that are made into policy. So I can't just fall asleep and not pay attention and not be a part of that, because then things happen and I go to bid on a project, a public works project specifically, and not realize that now I need an apprentice on my job in order to maintain the, follow the Apprentice Utilization Act. I may not have calculated for that. I may not even have an apprentice on staff. And if I don't know and I'm not updated and involved with that, then I could be stepping into something and that could be detrimental to my business. So for me in the construction industry, that is very important.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Boss and Taisha, for your comments. And circling back to you, Tiara, any comments about policy and being active and that on that particular playing field from a small business owner perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would agree with both Boss and Taisha that it's extremely important. I do want to add that for small business owners or for anybody, I guess, it can be overwhelming. And that's, again, where your affiliations and your memberships come into play. There are specific committees, there are specific people. They, majority of them have like government affairs and legislative committees. So utilize them because they're the ones that are really staying up to date on all that information and driving down all the updates, because it is very fast paced and it moves very fast. So I know for me, I feel overwhelmed at times with, oh, this changed or that changed, but I know exactly who to go to that is a subject matter expert.
Thank you so much for your comments. And with that being said, this has been such a robust and informative panel discussion. I really appreciate each of you with your field of expertise, the comments that you brought to the table and shared with the audience. So again, I'd like to acknowledge Tiara Flynn with Some New Marketing. Thank you so much for your excellent comments. Thank you, Taisha, for your fantastic comments, and also to you too, Boss, as well, for your candid comments. So I'd like to hand the discussion in reference to, I'd like to transition over to Q&A or look at our chat box to Raven or Amaya to engage the audience if they have any questions for our panelists. And thank you so much for providing me the opportunity to be a part of this discussion from a moderator perspective. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. We actually have a question from Ruth Furman. She asks, her question is about mindset and pricing. She says she feels as if she is discounting and giving away a lot of her services now. Perhaps some gigs she should decline because she wants to keep her energy positive and her brand active. Do you guys have any tips about how and when to say no? And she said she has a public relations firm.
Tiara, you want to go first?
Yeah. I know Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Well, so I think it's extremely challenging for professional services firms. So I know exactly where she's coming from with that. We struggled with that in our like mid years of going back and forth, like you said, trying not to compromise your pricing because you don't want to lose that transaction or that that gig, right? I think the first thing that I would say is make sure that you're covering your costs. And you might be thinking like, well, I don't have a product that I'm selling, so how do I do that? But you do know what your experience is, and you know what your investment is into the service that you're going to provide for that client. So the first thing is we as professional services firms do have to have that same mindset that we have to cover our costs. The second thing is that person someone that is going to bring you consistent cash flow or that relationship or whatever, because then it may be worth a slight compromise in that sense. But if it's not, if it's something that you know you're doing and you know that you're going to lay out a quality product or service, then I would say don't compromise. I know it's challenging, but people pay for what they want to. And then they all know the phrase, you get what you pay for. So I would say if somebody's asking you, or if they're making you feel like you need to compromise on your pricing, that's not it's not really the client for you. Hopefully that helps.
Questions in the chat. It looks like you guys pretty much addressed them all. So if nobody else has any questions, or the attendees can feel free to unmute really quickly to drop a question as well. Or if you guys have any final remarks or words of advice for anyone.
Hi, I just unmuted. I'm Ruth.
Okay.
Hi. So yeah, I really enjoyed your comments, Tiara, and I think that it's really easy, and I really enjoyed everyone's comments. This is really good information. I think it's really easy right now to kind of say yes to everyone. You know, I've lost, not a ridiculous amount, but I've lost a little bit of business, you know, through COVID. So, but I'm trying to be really deliberate, and it's really good advice. I was wondering if anyone else has any comments on kind of how to cut through sort of the COVID fog that everyone has to offer help and to get attention.
This is Brenda, and may I make a comment?
Yeah, go for it.
On when it comes to pricing, I think that we get caught up on the dollar amount, and we need to be wrapping our heads around the value that we bring to the client. So this was something that was taught to me years ago when I lived in Hawaii, that it's less about I can do this for you for X amount of dollars, and it's more about this is the value that I can bring to you that will allow your business to move to its next step. Thank you.
I agree. Ruth, for your other question, were you asking how do you cut through the COVID noise, as in what Kathleen was talking about earlier with these emerging or startup, and not to say that people aren't starting up because they feel inspired, but maybe because it's an alternative for them. Is that what you mean by your question?
No, basically just I find that, you know, a lot of my clients and people that I'm dealing with are just, they're in fear mode. And so it's really hard to kind of direct their attention to, you know, the right strategy. Some of the clients that I deal with are just a little desperate. So we still need to have good practices in marketing. So I was just curious if anyone had any thoughts about that.
Gotcha. For sure. We've had the same request, I guess, or the same panic in even some of our existing clients. I would again say get them to focus on the end in mind, because if they're so focused on right now, they're not considering what it is that they already plan to do in the next 3 or 5 or 10 years with their firm or with their company. Getting through the COVID, I guess, craziness or weathering the storm, all of those resources that we talked about earlier are already kind of helping do that already. So as business owners, we can't really focus on, like I said, staying up to date, I guess, for an example, on all the changes with PPP or all the changes with that. There are organizations and people already doing that for us. We need to focus on our business structure and what it is we set out to do before this distraction, because that's kind of what it is.
I do have a comment that I just wanted to make sure to make. Just in this industry or in the business environment right now, and even pre-COVID and moving forward, I think the most critical point for me is just to make sure to be a student of the industry. So that means that I need to study the industry. I need to study where it is that I fit in this industry. And even, are there opportunities for me to pivot as an electrical contractor? For example, just giving you just a random example, we take out old lights, we take out old ballasts, we take out old wires, and we dispose of them. We either, we recycle them or dispose of them with the disposal company. But at this point, that might be a place of pivoting. It's still within my industry. Maybe now we can collect the old light bulbs from places that are getting rid of them and see what we can do with that. So when I think of pivoting, I'm thinking in my industry. That's where I would feel safe to pivot rather than something totally different than what I am doing. And just making sure to be a student of the market and the industry that you're in, to learn what my role is and what opportunities are there that I can take advantage of without it costing me a new business.
Okay, so do we have would you guys like to give final remarks? We're a little past 11 now. So if you guys have any final words you'd like to leave our guests with?
I know Kathleen mentioned it briefly earlier, and I did want to add just a quote that we've been running with ever since we heard it. So hopefully Miss Cynthia Marshall doesn't come for us. She's the Dallas Mavericks CEO. And right now, Kathleen had mentioned a lot of people are focused or trying to pivot and focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I wanted to leave you guys with this quote from her that she said, "Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. True inclusion is when people are invited in on the conversation and they're invited in on the strategy." So it's just something to leave you guys with when you are possibly being approached as a firm that they may want to check a box. You can sense their integrity by exploring that quote a little bit. And thank you for listening to us today.
What about you, Taisha?
Nope, I just gave my last comment. Thank
Boss,
you.
how about you, sir? You're muted, boss.
Thank you for the invitation. The only thing I would like to leave with everybody that's where we were a few years ago is this. be prepared, be hungry, know it's not a 9 to 5, and be responsive. There is nothing worse than not being responsive or thinking when something's going on, somebody wants my attention, it's always, when is a good time for me to be there, as opposed to, it's never at my convenience. It's always at my client's convenience. Remember that, it always works. That's it.
Anything for Kathleen? Any final words?
I would just like to once again say thank you so much to the Some New Marketing team for doing a remarkable job in coordinating the series of webinars to highlight the NDOT disparity study, and for having this bonus webinar as well featuring small business owners that have engaged in contracting with public and private entities. And thank you so much for again for the opportunity to moderate a panel of experts in various fields of expertise from a small business development perspective. So thank you. It's always a pleasure to partner with the Urban Chamber of Commerce, with Some New Marketing in this capacity and others. So I look forward to collaborating with both entities and for future projects and activities. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
all right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Hope you guys have a good day and reach out to us if you need anything from Some New Marketing.
Okay,
Will
thank you.
do. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.